Well, good afternoon, everybody. How is it going? Welcome to Office Hours. My name is Paul Turner from the discipleproject.net. I hope that you're all well today. And if you're wondering if this is the first time you may be seeing this is Office Hours, where I answer 3 youth ministry questions. And I try my best to, it's not always the perfect answer, but it's my answer. And so I stand behind it because it's my answer. And context is always king. So your context, my context is going to be different. But I've been in enough contexts over the past 30 years that I have an idea. Of maybe what some of these questions might mean for you. Now, we're going to jump into today here. We're going to wait till a few people just kind of get in here. If you are interested at all in resources of that nature, you can go to gumroad.com, Youth Men Resources. Links will be down in the doobly-doo in the description. You can always check it out there. And lots of exciting things going on. If you are interested in coaching at all, let me tell you, this is the time to get in on coaching. Because, let's see, nope, that's not what I want. This is your time to get in on coaching because it is currently, I'm doing a Black Friday sale, 50% off. That's right, 50% off coaching for 3 months. If you get 3 months worth of coaching, that's twice a month coaching with me, 90-minute sessions. We'll talk about everything you want to talk about. We'll talk about planning. We'll check in. We'll go over issues. We will do all the things that we need to do to help you build a successful youth ministry. And so if you're interested, if you want 2024 to be different than 2023, I think coaching makes all the difference. If you need somebody to hang with you, be in your corner, work with you on this thing, if you're afraid that you're going to get fired, if you're afraid you're not doing enough, if you're afraid that you're doing too much, if you're just afraid that you don't feel confident or competent, I want to get you there. That's what it's about. I want to help you get there. And for those of you that are wondering, maybe, well, Paul, I don't think I need coaching. Okay, well, good. I'm happy for you. I'm glad that you're well. I'm glad you're doing great. But there are some of you that are thinking, I'm on the fence about it. Well, give it some prayer, give it some thought, because the question really then becomes, what if I don't get coaching? What if I don't get it? How will I change or be different in 2024 versus 2023? How will I be different? How will I change? What's my growth strategy for me? You're thinking about your students, but the deal is you may not be thinking about your own growth strategy. You're thinking about how to grow your students, how to grow the youth ministry, all those things. The question then becomes, though, how do you grow yourself? Because as you grow yourself, as the ceiling gets higher and higher, right, you can grow. But if you're stuck, tough to grow. It's tough to grow when you're not growing. So my encouragement is check out. It's 50% off. Like I said, it's 50% off. Coaching right now, Black Friday sale. It's up right now. Link will be in the description. Check it out if it's going to be for you. Cool. Would love to join you in the journey and help you do what God's put on your heart to do in the church God's put you in. So let's see. What else is coming up? Next week, I will be unleashing maybe is a better word. I've put together 2024. If you're not familiar with my youth ministry playbook, it is a collection. And I can just show you at least a few pages of what I have. This is something I use. This is not like I'm just not producing it for other people. This is something I use in my daily youth ministry. When I'm planning, when I'm doing things, these are all things that I use. I have articles. I have, all of my calendars in there, my monthly to-dos. I have my planners. I have, like I said, articles. I have event planners that I use. So if you're interested in a full, complete playbook on how to run your youth ministry, this is going to be it. Because I tell you what, this one, 2024, is jam-packed with all kinds of, there's over 20 articles in there. It's probably going to be closer to 30. Probably closer to the 30 best articles I've ever written are going to be in this book, including over a dozen forums, including goal-setting course that I put together. It's 7 lessons. You get both the PDF and the audio of it, so you can work. There's a little extra bits on the audio that I share. You're going to get that. You're going to get 5 or 6 guides, youth pastor's guide to trips. You're going to get a youth pastor's guide to an epic Nerf night. You're going to get youth pastor's guide for the first time, brand new, to youth camp. So if you are interested in getting a complete playbook, and it's growing, by the way, it's not shrinking. It's only growing as I add more to it. In fact, probably in 2024, there'll be a price increase on this as I put more in it, because I'm putting ebooks in there that I've written. I'm putting in, like I said, you get all your calendar stuff in there. You don't have to print off your calendars. I did that for you. There is a ton of stuff in here. And so if you're interested, there'll be a link. It's not quite ready yet, but it will be up probably, I want to say the Monday before Thanksgiving. And so it will be up and you'll be hearing more about it. I'll do a complete walkthrough. You'll see more of it, of what you're going to get in there. And it is the biggest collection, because I've been doing this since 2019. So I'm actually taking 2019, 2020, 2021, and 22, 23, and I'm putting them all together to make one super playbook. So if that is something you are interested in, then it will be up and I will show you more about it as we move forward. So, all right, so let's go ahead and jump in here. Let's get to the questions for today. Question number 1. Question number 1 is, let's see here, make sure I got this. Here we go. All right, question number 1. Question number 1 on office hours here is going to be, how are visitors and visitor follow-up handled within your youth ministry? Well, you know what? I have turned over quite a bit of that to my students. So I don't do a lot of follow-up. We're in a small rural church. We have about 7 to 10 students. We've grown a little bit. And that's because students are reaching out to students. I am equipping students to reach out to their friends. And there are, for me, the older I get, that I am not, I don't want to have to, text, people of the opposite sex. I don't want to have to, get into all that. I would rather just equip students to love their friends and follow up with their friends. Now, there's all kinds of ways you can do it. I can go do snail mail. I can write letters. I have no problem with that. But I find that our students, I can only speak for mine, but for my students, they take care of themselves in this regard. They don't want necessarily me, per se, doing a lot of follow-up with their friends. They want to do the follow-up with their friends. And so I follow up by following up with them. I follow up with my students. I don't follow up with the guests. I say, hey, how's so-and-so doing? Or I'll say, how is that friend that you brought? What did they think of the youth ministry? Versus me speaking to them directly. Now, I'll talk to them. It's not like I'm not talking to guests or anything like that. As far as follow-up goes, I'm encouraging the students who bring their friends to do the follow-up. And my role, as I see it, is to be somebody who is trustworthy, that when they bring their friends, I'm not goofy, I'm not weird. I show up, I share the gospel. I have the best meeting that I can possibly have, because that's a saying that I heard a long time ago was, listen, the best advertisement for your youth ministry is your next youth meeting. And so I make sure that every youth meeting I have is the best it can be. So when I'm building that trust with students, it's because I'm putting a lot of effort to make that meeting, whatever meeting they're bringing their friends to, I'm going to make that the best meeting. And that's the way to follow up, is just be consistent and be trustworthy and continue to do the things that I'm doing, so that the students that are mine, who are inviting their friends, they know I can trust Paul. Paul's going to do a good job this week. Paul isn't going to act weird. He's not going to do goofy stuff. He's not going to embarrass my friends. He's not going to embarrass me. And, that's just kind of the format that I'm going with. And it seems to be working very, very well. My students, I think, appreciate it. That I don't, text their friends and things of that nature. They're like, Paul, we can take care of that. We got that under control. Now, there are plenty of things, though, that you can do. You can offer things like, if you wanted to hand somebody, and I've done this before in other groups, hey, come back next week. Here's a coupon for some free food. Now, we do, if you have a cafe, this was back when I had a cafe, and we charged money for food. And that money that students paid for went towards missions. And so we would charge kids, but like I said, that money either went back into any profit, went back into missions, or it went to help supply things for the cafe, to run it like an actual cafe with a budget and everything. So I would always give away, a coupon that says, hey, come next week and get some free food. Or come next week and, hey, I'll give you a free shirt or a hat or some sort of youth ministry merch, just as a way to say thank you for coming. Thanks you for being a part. So anytime you can hand a student something and say, hey, bring this back, or, you can be able to, say, hey, if you come next week, we're going to give you, I know some youth ministries that have a recliner in their youth room. And if you come back next week, we're going to give you the best seat in the house. That recliner is going to be yours. So there's all kinds of ways to do it. There's all kinds of ways to engage with students where you don't have to go out directly and follow up with students if that's not your jam, or you feel uncomfortable with that in some way. You can still be able to do that and work with your students and work through your students. And I find that to be, at least for me, a relief in a lot of ways, and it's also just gives them more responsibility. So that's how I follow up with visitors, and how I'll do everything I can do within my power. I've done little things like send them a video. This was about a year or so ago, and then I wasn't comfortable with that, but I did send a video and say, hey, thanks for showing up today. And I sent them a little video of me just thanking them for being there if they filled out a card when we were filling out cards, which is okay too. But I also, I have feelings about it. If there's a system in place that you've done that in your youth ministry the whole time, that's one thing. But I don't know if our students that's never been the culture of our students either, where you filled out a card. It's just sort of this family kind of nature where it's not very, it's not very methodical in the sense of, hey, we need to get our visitors to fill out a card. I automatically did not feel like that was going to be the vibe in our group when I first got there. So I said, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to try to install that. I'm just going to trust my students to reach their friends and encourage them to do so. And so far, they've done a fantastic job. I've had kids show up to events. I've had them, invite their friends back to meetings. What we're doing is working. But I would encourage you, use whatever method you can use to bring students back. Some of the suggestions I made. So that's what I think. But you let me know down in the comments what you think. What's your special way of getting visitors to come back to your youth group? All right, let's go to question 2. Question number 2 says, I need help doing a student takeover, and I'm lost as what to do with middle schoolers. It's fair. It's a fair question, because middle schoolers are unique in the sense that they're squirrely a little bit. You don't know what they're going to do. And I think in the context here, they're taking over the actual church service. So that possibly makes youth pastors a little more nervous as to what responsibility they're going to give middle school students. But if I can offer anything, I would say this. I would say, ask them what they like to do. If you could choose, and I would give them choices. and you know them better than anybody. So you're going to know if they're an introvert or an extrovert and what they're going to like to do. So first of all, I would say that. Ask them what they like and then give them choices. Already have planned out choices of the 3 or 4 things you want to offer them, and let's see what they take. The second thing I would say is, there are nonverbal, non-stage type of things that could be, things that you could offer them, such as handing out bulletins, greeting at the door, helping in the tech, being out front, giving out the morning coffee or whatever the snack or the whatever it may be, handing out guest bags to people who are guests. If you have a little guest station, they could be the people who hand out the little guest bags to people who have visited for the day. And so there are, plenty of opportunities especially for middle school students. And I wouldn't put them alone. I would pair them up to do a task. And you say, Paul, but they'll get in trouble that way, won't they? Well, not necessarily, but I can tell you this, they'll get bored. Either way, they're going to get bored. I guess you got to say, you know your kids better than I do. I say just, trust them to the degree that you can trust them. But if you pair them up, they're going to get, I think, much more value and a shared experience from that. So number one is I would find out what they like to do, give them choices. For those who are introverts, give them, nonverbal, non-stage type of things that they can do, such as the bulletins and greeting, visitor station, donuts at the booth or whatever you may have for that morning. And then the last thing I would say is I would recommend coaching them up. In them, if they've been with you any amount of time, you know what they're good at. And if you feel like they could do the scripture reading or do the announcements, something like that, well, you could coach them up to do that because you're really being somewhat prophetic with them and speaking into their lives and say, hey, I know you could do this. Would you give it a try? If they say no, then hey, no worries. But if they say yes, well, then suddenly they have broken through a barrier that they had because somebody believed in them. That's what coaches do. Coaches implant belief in them, in their their students or their athletes to do something that they've maybe never done before, don't feel comfortable doing it, or have simply not pushed themselves to that degree. And so I think offering them and speaking into their lives and saying, I'll give you an opportunity. I would love to see you do that. I think you would do a great job at that. And then watch them shine, watch their face beam, not only at the belief that you put in them, but also the fact that they've done it. And they say, hey, I've achieved something here. I've overcome a fear of this or a fear of that. And boy, I really enjoyed that. And maybe that leads to something else. That leads to doing more upfront things. They just needed the opportunity. They just needed the belief. They just needed the encouragement from someone to coach them up and then give them the opportunity to do it. So yes, so if you're doing whether it's a student takeover of your youth ministry or a student takeover and you're doing the actual church service, I think both of these things that I've shared apply to both situations. So take that for what it's worth, and I would encourage you to try it, all the different methods, all the different ways, to see that students have the opportunity at least to say yes or to say no, and then wait for the next time and then give them another opportunity. So that's what I would think about that. But like I said, you're welcome to leave some comments down below or in the chat. If you have a question, by the way, you're in the chat. You are welcome to, and I see a few that are just kind of hanging out. Welcome in. Thank you for being here. And if you have a youth ministry question, now is a good time to ask, because I'm going on to question number 3, and that is going to be the last question of the day. Question number 3. This is just a. And there are no dumb questions, by the way, because this question is fairly simple, but it's a question, we ask. It's a question we or maybe you've never thought of it. You're like, wow, that's interesting. And question number 3 here is, What time does your weekly service start and end? I'm afraid that our service is too long at 90 minutes, and we might have to make a change in the new year. So what I would say is what is the purpose of your meeting? How do you know if it's too long or too short for what is you're trying to achieve? Because for me, my youth meetings are 1 hour, 7 to 8 traditionally, and then there's 15 minutes of everybody just hanging around, chatting and talking, sometimes 30, depending if we go out to eat afterwards or whatever it may be. So the time factor that you may have, and I'd be interested to hear from you. What time does your youth meeting? How long does your youth meeting last? This particular youth meeting that was mentioned was 90 minutes, and those traditionally 90 minutes is my traditional youth meeting time. And when I came to this church to be the youth pastor there part time, it was only an hour, and I thought to myself, how am I going to fit everything in? How in the world am I going to fit everything that I used to do in the 90 minutes into the 1 hour? And I said, you know what? I'm just going to have to change, because the programs that were in place, the adult meeting and so forth, they were all set. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to have to go with what I have here. And I'm saying, all right, not try to do too much and really boil down to what I think we can get done together as a group. And like I said, thus far, it is working. Students are coming. It does not seem too long, and it does not seem too short. I thought it would feel like, and there are some weeks that it's like that. There's some weeks where I feel like, we could have used an extra 30 minutes. We could have done an extra, we needed an extra. Sometimes I'll take an extra 10 minutes, right? So no big deal with that. But I would say you have to go back to what is the purpose of your meeting, and do you have a sufficient amount of time to fulfill that purpose? If you do, then that's great. If you don't, then you may want to see if you can extend it, which then leads to the second part of this, I would say, is it's a good opportunity to talk with students, parents, your pastor, and ask them what they think. Do you think we're accomplishing enough in this 1 hour? Is the purpose being fulfilled? What do you think, parents, is being done in that hour? Is that sufficient amount of time? Is there something else we need to add to it? Some youth groups don't have a full worship. And so that time is spent in maybe games or, straight teaching or Bible study or small group or whatever it is. And so it's a great opportunity to say, hey, parents, do you think we're accomplishing what we can accomplish in 1 hour? And if they say yes, then that's your answer. Unless you say, well, we could do this, and I think it's okay to say that, to say and at least provide and say we could use more time for this. Would you mind if we went 15 minutes over? And see what kind of gauge it a little bit and see what the feeling is about that. If you need that extra 15 minutes of time, and it's a great opportunity to just audit the purpose of the youth meeting and to audit your meeting in such a way that says, and it's not about judgment. It's not judgment on you or judgment of the meeting or judgment on the kids. It's simply saying, is what we're having time appropriate to accomplish what we set out to accomplish? And sometimes you have to scale your goals based within the time that you have. And, right now, 1 hour for our group, it works. No reason to extend it. Certainly no reason to shorten it. And we have worship with ours. The first 15 minutes, students are helping lead worship with the congregation, and then we go off to our room. So I think right now we have a very good mix of both serving and doing ministry and then our time together, which is a solid 45 minutes. And we still have time to play a game. We still have time usually to do teaching. We have time for conversation and hanging out. So I'd say for me, 1 hour is good. But is 1 hour good for you and what you're trying to do? That I don't know. That's where you have to go to parents, your pastor, the students, and see what you're willing to do there. And I would throw a couple more things with that. What your students need from week to week varies. They always need social time. They always need food. They always need a time of discussing maybe the Bible, a small group time. So maybe it's a matter of segmenting your weeks. If you feel like you don't have enough time, then maybe 1 week is 2 weeks, the first and third week of the month are for preaching, and the second it's for preaching, it's for other things, worship and preaching, or whatever you put in there. And then the other 2 weeks following those weeks, the third and fourth week, or the second and fourth week, are for small groups. And say, hey, this week I'm going to teach this. Next week, we're actually going to open it up and discuss it. And we're going to look at it from another angle. We're actually going to go back to the same scriptures, and we're going to look at it a different way. And then you can do that for a season. Do that for 6 months and see what transpires. Nothing has to be forever. Everything can change. Everything can morph. You can pivot from this to that and find ways of accomplishing your goals that doesn't have to be all in one night. It could be an every other week type of thing. And if you think you have too much time, well, what itch do and there's lag time or whatever it may be, maybe it's time to ask, well, what itch do my students have that I may not be scratching? And it's a time for a good conversation. It's time to say, okay, well, we got an extra 30 minutes. Well, what do you want to do with that 30 minutes? What can we do? Can we do a service project? Is that something, a part of our mission that we're missing? Is that part of our purpose that we're missing? Is that last 30 minutes a time of prayer? Is that last 30 minutes a time of small group? Whatever it is for your group, all I'm saying is that I think it's a great opportunity to take a look at what you have, look at the purpose of it, ask if you're fulfilling that purpose over time, and then saying, okay, where do we need to pivot? How do we need to break this up? Is it too much time, too little time? And then how do I take the elements that I think are necessary and either make it shorter and more precise to fit and maybe get away from a lot of fluff to make it all fit one meeting? Or how do I take it and stretch it over a month versus trying to squeeze it all into one meeting? So, but like I said, I'd love to hear from you. How your meetings flow. What does your meeting look like? Leave me some comments down below. And of course, if you guys enjoyed this today, if you enjoyed Office Hours and you would love to give the video a thumbs up, I'd appreciate that. And then you can always share the video with somebody who might need it as well. So, and of course, if you're not a subscriber, be sure to subscribe. We'd love to have you as part of the community. And that way you'll know when I go live on Wednesdays, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. So, but that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Appreciate you being a part today. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great youth meeting, everybody. We'll talk to you later.